When you think about well-being at work, let's just say 5 years ago, and you think about well-being at work today, talk to me maybe about how that's evolved based on what your experience is and being in the trenches and now consulting for folks that are looking for ways to improve.
Yeah, the evolution of wellness to well-being is a real thing. And I've seen it, firsthand. It was already starting to bubble up a little bit before COVID, and then definitely, COVID hits, and like you were saying, there are some silver linings that have come out of it. But really, when I'm saying the transition of wellness to well-being, what I'm talking about there is for so many years, we were focused on just improving physical health and that nutrition and the steps, and those things are important and still very important. But I think what we have transitioned to these days and what we're trying to get more employers to transition to is this whole person well-being and the holistic well-being approach. And what I mean by that is focusing in on not just the physical well-being of a person, but also their financial well-being and their social and emotional well-being and their career well-being and their community well-being. Those are all pillars of well-being. Those are all things that people think about that are part of how they, are best wired when all of those things are working well together. And what I have seen over the years is, and this is more on an individual basis, many times, people that have a physical health issue or need, they can't get that managed well and under control and in a great state of well-being until some of these other essential areas of well-being are met. It's very hard for someone that has diabetes that, needs to get their medication and they can't afford it financially. Or maybe they even can't get a car to get to the, pharmacy to go pick it up. All those determinants of health, I know that's a big word, but those determinants of health matter. And so I think that's where we are starting to see this big shift, and more and more employers have realized that, especially coming out of COVID, of that, wow, the whole person does come to work. How can we help that person meet them where they're at, get to their best state of well-being by meeting all those needs?
You brought up Joel Ellison earlier, and I'll never forget. We were sitting in the giant hallway or giant entries of Baylor Scott and White, and he was going to give a speech, and we're sitting there, and I'm looking at his cowboy boots and the wonderful suit he had on, and I think I had Air Jordans on at the time, but like he looks at me and he's like pointing to like 5 different people that are working at the health system, and he goes, "Troy, how do we bring value to that person? How do we bring value to that person? And this is a doctor, this is a nurse, this is a custodial staff. How are we bringing value to that person?" And I'm sitting there going, this is a CEO of this giant, and he's sitting there going, how do I make sure that that person is cared for? And that was his mindset. Yes. That leadership was just like, he's still the greatest, I think the greatest endorser of well-being I've ever seen. And from cookbooks to going out there and talking to chambers and getting other businesses involved and creating like, how do we help as a health system? How do we help employers and things like that? When it comes to leadership, where do you put that as an X factor of an organization's culture, well-being, and in the end, bottom line results of, claims costs and everything like that? Where do you put the leadership in that variable?
Yeah. So let me answer it this way. If somebody asked me, how do I get a leader to buy in at my organization? I'm not sure they're really bought into well-being. I say change jobs is what I say, because being a leader and having that leadership commitment is essential. It truly is essential, because what that then creates is the ability for all the people to get behind and get the support they need to actually start making a difference. And there's less about having to feel like you're, being told what to do or being like that you have to show that this works or this doesn't work, or you're going to be taken off the chopping block with this program. Having just that leader support is just, like I said, fully essential to having a successful program, component, all those things associated with well-being.
And Jay, when we like whiteboard and we list, we do our surveys and we listen and we read every study and we whiteboard. What I love seeing in well-being programs now is how they're integrating career and they're integrating purpose. They're integrating, hey, do you know we have these other resources available to you? To me, that's where I love the evolution of where well-being has evolved from the 165 question set that says, do you have a drink? Do you smoke? Whatever. And that's what it is. To now it's like, hey, here's your whole life. How can we make sure that you're cared for? Because life and work, that line's blurry. So let's take responsibility as an employer and say, let's help you along your pathway. So you start to see more and more of that integrated, Jay. Where do you see that even more? Like maybe what's the next step of that integration when it comes to like well-being and HR and maybe benefits? And
yeah, we keep seeing the evolution of wellness to well-being, a holistic program, and that definition of well-being, particularly at an employer, has expanded greatly. It used to be, let's just get them to the doctor, or let's just bring on a biometric screening crew and have everybody know their numbers. Then it evolves to, okay, let's get everybody to the doctor, which is great. Now it encompasses everything going on at the organization, from clinical well-being to benefit packages to employee engagement. And bringing all of that together is a way that we can help drive not just healthy behaviors, but productivity and positivity and engagement in the organization as a whole. So that means that we, as the wellness vendors out there, have to grow and evolve, which means we have to be sort of paying attention to what our employees are asking. So obviously they were asking us about mental health. They're saying, I'm passionate about this. We need support over COVID. And now that we're coming out of that, where people invested heavily into that, not to say that we're not still needing to continue those trends, but we're seeing people want to align their work and their life a lot better. We're seeing, we still got ways to go when it comes to physical activity and nutrition, obviously. And mental health is top of mind for a lot of people out there. But I think the next big thing is going to be making sure that you align with your workplace on a personal level, that the values that you hold for you and your family are represented where you work. And we're seeing that in surveys. So employers are starting to get on board with that. And they're starting to say, well, how do we make sure that we're aligning with our people? That means you need to understand your people, not just what their numbers are, and not just what they make or what they say on an employee engagement survey, but who they are at their core. And so I think we need to continue to build tools that help leaders, HR professionals, all the way up to the CEO, understand who works for them on a personal level. And that means we also need to understand yourself. You understand the people that work with you. You need to be able to share those results and get out there and sort of have the tools at your disposal. And we've been building those. We feel like we're on the cutting edge of the definition of well-being right now, expanding to employee engagement and career well-being, and helping people support themselves and helping leaders support the people that have put their day-to-day trust in them.